If you make these mistakes, understand that the avoidant will never come back. This may sound simple, but in reality, it's a deep psychological truth. Avoidants don't walk away suddenly. Every step they take is the result of an ongoing silent struggle within them. But the biggest problem is that after they leave, we ourselves push them even further away through our own mistakes. According to psychological research, when a person faces rejection or loss, their brain shifts into survival mode. In this state, their reactions are usually controlled by the fight or flight system. That means they either cling desperately or they create extreme distance. Avoidant personalities naturally choose distance. The real trouble begins when, after they leave, we start acting out of desperation. Things like constantly messaging, crying and begging, or lowering our self-worth in their eyes. These mistakes only make them justify their decision to stay away. A famous philosopher, Friedrich Nietzsche, once said, "Sometimes people don't leave for lack of love, they leave for lack of space." In relationships, when your only why becomes their return, you start losing yourself. And that's exactly the moment when the avoidant pulls away even more because they feel like you've lost control of your own identity. In this video, we'll talk about the 6 mistakes you should never make after an avoidant leaves. These are the actions that guarantee they will never return. But if you learn to avoid them, not only will you handle the situation better, you'll also protect your self-worth. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next part that will help improve your life and relationships. Mistake number 1 is begging or pleading. When an avoidant leaves, your natural instinct is to hold on. You feel the loss, the emptiness, and the panic rising inside. In that state of fear, it feels almost impossible not to reach out, to send one more message, make one more call, or pour your heart out in a long, desperate text. Begging feels like the only way to save the bond. But here's the bitter truth. The moment you beg, the avoidant does not see love. They see pressure. And pressure is exactly what they are trying to escape. The German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer once said, "A man can do what he wills, but he cannot will what he wills." This perfectly reflects the avoidant's reality. They cannot simply choose closeness when their internal wiring is urging them to pull away. So when you beg or plead, you may believe you're expressing love, but to the avoidant it feels like a demand to change their very nature, something they never asked for and something they cannot easily do. From a psychological standpoint, pleading places you in a submissive posture, stripping away your dignity and self-respect. The avoidant's core fear is engulfment, the feeling that someone else will consume their freedom or identity. So when you fall to your knees metaphorically, when you cry, beg and plead, what the avoidant hears is not your pain but your unspoken demand. Stay even if you don't want to. And for someone wired to value independence above everything, this becomes suffocating. But this doesn't mean you have no choice except to watch them slip away. The healthier response is to step back with grace, not chase with desperation. Instead of filling their phone with endless calls, let silence carry your strength. Instead of begging them to stay, show through your calmness that your world does not collapse without them. An avoidant does not respond to pressure, but they do notice self-control, and nothing unsettles them more than realizing you are not trying to pull them back. The shift here is subtle but powerful. When you stop pleading, you remove their justification for distance. When you maintain dignity, you remind them of your value. Rather than pushing them further away, you allow the space they crave, and in that space respect begins to regrow. If your instinct is to cry out, "Please don't leave," replace it with silence that says, "I won't chase, but I also won't lose myself." That silence becomes your shield, your proof of strength, and sometimes the very thing that makes an avoidant question their decision. Mistake number 2, over-texting or calling. When you separate from an avoidant, the first fear that grips you is the possibility of losing contact altogether. Out of this fear, you start sending message after message, making one call after another, trying to turn every bit of silence into noise. You believe that this persistence will make your presence felt, but in reality, for the avoidant, it becomes a form of pressure that pushes them even further away. Every new notification from you does not feel like closeness. it feels like an attempt to invade their space. The Greek philosopher Epictetus once said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." The meaning behind this is that true strength lies in patience and calm, not in haste and noise. Yet when you flood the avoidant with calls and texts, you destroy your own calm. The more you chase, the easier it becomes for the avoidant to believe their decision was right. They don't see your messages as love, they see them as a net, and stepping into it would mean the end of their freedom. From a psychological perspective, over-texting and over-calling exposes your restlessness. Each repeated call tells the avoidant that you are incapable of holding your life together without them, and that very signal awakens their greatest fear, the fear that returning means every day, every moment, will depend entirely on them. That is why the avoidant increases their distance, because closeness now feels like responsibility and burden. But there is another way to respond. Instead of revealing your anxiety through a flood of texts, you can show calmness through your behavior. There is power in silence, and the avoidant senses it immediately. When you don't over-contact them, your message becomes clear: my life does not revolve around you alone. This subtle shift forces the avoidant to see you differently, as someone who respects themselves enough to also respect space. At the same time, invest your energy into your own growth. Keep yourself engaged, spend time with friends, focus on your passions. This not only makes you stronger but also creates a new image of you in the avoidant's eyes, a person who knows their value and doesn't need to rely on pressure to hold someone close. Where your heart may want to send 20 messages, taking a step back is actually the action that makes the avoidant stop and reconsider. Mistake number 3. Posting for attention. Social media traps. When an avoidant pulls away, the silence feels unbearable. You want to scream to show them what they've lost, and social media becomes the easiest weapon in your hands. You start posting stories, pictures, or quotes that are not really meant for the world, they're meant for them. A sad song, a moody caption, or a perfectly curated photo is uploaded in the hope that they will see it and regret leaving. But here's the truth: every time you post for attention, you're not pulling them closer, you're chasing them indirectly, and an avoidant sees right through it. Instead of feeling drawn back, they feel confirmed in their belief that you cannot handle the separation with maturity. The philosopher Søren Kierkegaard once said, "The crowd is untruth." What he meant was that the need to be seen and validated by others often takes us away from authenticity. And that is exactly what happens when you post for an avoidant. You are no longer living authentically, you are performing. The avoidant doesn't see a strong individual, they see someone trying to manipulate emotions through public displays. And for someone already allergic to pressure, these signals feel like hidden chains. Psychologically, attention-seeking posts reveal two things: desperation and dependency. When you upload a sad song at midnight, or a picture that screams loneliness, the avoidant doesn't think, "They still love me." Instead, their mind interprets it as, "They are still chasing me," even without speaking directly. For an avoidant, this is exhausting. They don't view it as romance, they view it as strategy, and because their instinct is to protect their freedom, they withdraw even more. What you thought would spark guilt or curiosity only deepens their resolve to keep distance. But here is the shift you can make. Instead of using social media as a weapon, use it as a mirror of your real growth. Don't post to prove something to them, post only if it genuinely reflects what you're doing for yourself. Better yet, step back from using it as a stage altogether. The strongest message you can send to an avoidant is the absence of performance. When they don't see desperate signals, when they realize you're not trying to provoke or impress them, it creates a space where their curiosity begins to rise on its own. The real solution lies in redirecting your focus. Pour your energy into actual experiences, not online appearances. Meet people, learn something new, go places, and let your life be evidence of strength without needing to display it for their eyes. If you must share, let it be natural, not targeted. Because when you stop posting for attention, two things happen: you regain your authenticity, and the avoidant no longer feels chased. Ironically, that's the only environment where they might one day look back and notice your absence. What once was an indirect chase can transform into silent dignity, and that silence speaks louder than any post ever could. Mistake number 4, talking negative about them. When an avoidant leaves, the pain feels unbearable, and in that storm of emotions, many people fall into the trap of speaking badly about them. It might be in conversations with friends, through subtle digs online, or even by sharing private details to paint the avoidant as the villain. In those moments it feels like release, as though exposing their flaws will give you some relief. But what it truly does is destroy the last thread of trust between you and them. An avoidant already fears judgment and conflict. When they sense you are talking negatively, it convinces them that staying away is the safest choice. The philosopher Socrates once said, "Strong minds discuss ideas, average minds discuss events, weak minds discuss people." These words cut to the core of this mistake. When you use your energy to tear the avoidant down, you're not showing strength, you're showing weakness. They don't see your pain as justified. They see your words as proof that closeness with you will only lead to exposure and criticism. For someone who values their emotional safety above all, this is the ultimate red flag. On a deeper level, speaking negatively projects insecurity. Instead of appearing calm, you appear reactive. And while you may believe you are regaining control by venting, the avoidant interprets it as a loss of control. Each negative word you speak reinforces the idea in their mind. This is why I needed to step back. Even if they don't hear the words directly, news has a way of reaching them, and the impression it leaves is lasting. To them it is not simply gossip, it is betrayal, and betrayal is something that shuts the door permanently. But here is the choice you can make instead. Silence and restraint become your shield. Where your first instinct may be to tell everyone how wrong they were, the stronger move is to rise above it. By not speaking ill, you protect your own dignity, and ironically, you protect the possibility of their respect as well. For an avoidant, seeing that you did not attack their character even in their absence plants a seed of curiosity. If they didn't turn against me, maybe I misjudged them. That seed can later grow into reflection, something pleading or chasing could never achieve. Redirect your emotions into expression that uplifts you rather than harms them. Write privately, talk to a trusted confidant who won't spread your words or channel the energy into creative work. This keeps your integrity intact and prevents you from feeding the avoidance fear of exposure. The absence of negativity speaks louder than any rant ever could. Where criticism destroys trust, composure rebuilds it, and the truth is simple. An avoidant may forget what you said to them, but they will never forget what you said about them. Choosing dignity in those moments is not only your strength, it's the only path that doesn't lock the door forever. Mistake number 5, jumping into rebound. When an avoidant leaves, the emptiness they create can feel unbearable. The silence echoes so loudly that many people rush to fill it with someone new. Jumping into a rebound relationship seems like a quick escape, a way to prove you've moved on, to show that you are not broken. On the surface it feels like strength, but in reality it is one of the clearest signals of immaturity. To the avoidant, this doesn't look like growth, it looks like rejection disguised as distraction, and instead of making them reconsider, it convinces them that distance was the right choice. The philosopher Seneca once said, "He who is everywhere is nowhere." This thought perfectly describes the rebound trap. When you scatter yourself from one connection to another without reflection, you lose the depth of your own being. The avoidant, watching from afar, doesn't see independence in your new attachment, they see avoidance of your own pain. To them, it feels like you are proving that intimacy is replaceable, and if they were once special, that sense of value disappears instantly. Psychologically, a rebound exposes your inability to sit with discomfort. Instead of showing that you can handle loss with composure, you reveal that you need constant distraction to survive. And for an avoidant, who already fears being engulfed, seeing you leap into someone else's arms confirms their deepest suspicion. If I return, I'll be trapped in a cycle where emotions are never stable. Your attempt to spark jealousy or indifference backfires because rather than missing you, they feel justified in walking away. They tell themselves, they didn't really love me, they just needed someone, anyone. But there is another choice, one that speaks far louder than a rebound ever could. Instead of running to someone new, allow yourself to remain still in the silence. Show through your actions that you are not afraid of solitude. This doesn't mean you cut yourself off from the world, but it does mean you don't use another person as a shield against your wounds. The avoidant, whether consciously or not, notices this. They see that you are not throwing your heart into the next available hand just to fill a gap, and that restraint makes them view you with more respect than any rebound could ever achieve. The most powerful thing you can do in the aftermath of loss is to choose growth over distraction. Invest in yourself, in your health, your passions, your friendships. Rebuild the parts of you that were neglected, not by replacing the avoidant, but by strengthening your own foundation. A rebound screams desperation, self-growth whispers maturity, and the avoidant, who runs from pressure, cannot ignore the quiet dignity of someone who rises alone. That image plants a seed no performance or new relationship could ever plant, the seed of doubt about their choice to leave. Mistake number 6, chasing closure too fast. When a relationship ends with an avoidant, the unanswered questions can feel heavier than the breakup itself. You want to know why, you want an explanation, you want them to confirm your worth. That hunger for closure pushes you to demand answers right away. You send long messages asking what went wrong, or insist on meeting so you can just talk it through. To you it feels like seeking clarity. To the avoidant, it feels like pressure, and pressure is the very thing that makes them retreat even further. The urgency for closure, instead of bringing peace, convinces them that leaving was the only way to escape suffocation. The philosopher Lao Tzu once said, "Nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished." His words remind us that forcing timing rarely leads to harmony. When you chase closure too quickly, you are not giving space for the natural process of reflection. The avoidant does not hear your request as a calm question, they hear it as a demand, and in their world, demands equal loss of freedom. That fear of being cornered makes them shut down, offering either shallow answers or no answers at all, which leaves you even more frustrated than before. On a psychological level, the obsession with closure exposes an inability to tolerate uncertainty. By pushing for explanations, you unconsciously show that your sense of stability depends on their words. To the avoidant, this dependence feels dangerous. They already fear being responsible for another's emotions, and your insistence confirms their worst belief. If I return, I'll be held accountable for every feeling they have. What was meant to bring clarity ends up building a wall that feels impossible to cross. But the path does not have to end there. The wiser move is to slow down and let silence do its work. Instead of demanding immediate closure, allow yourself to sit with the unknown. This is not weakness, it is strength. When you resist the urge to corner them with questions, you show that your emotional world does not rely on their explanations. That restraint can shift the dynamic completely. The avoidant begins to sense that you are not chasing them, not trying to tie them down with words, and that in itself lowers their defenses. Closure is not something to be hunted, it is something that grows over time. Focus instead on creating your own meaning from the experience. Journal your feelings, talk to someone you trust, or reflect quietly. These steps allow you to process without dragging the avoidant into a space they are not ready for. And ironically, when you stop demanding answers, that is often when the avoidant feels safe enough to speak. Patience here becomes your greatest ally. If you chase closure too fast, you lose both clarity and dignity. But if you allow time to unfold naturally, you may find that closure either comes on its own, or you no longer need it to move forward. In the end, what truly drives an avoidant further away is not always the breakup itself, but the way you respond afterward. Every desperate act, whether it's begging, over-texting, posting for attention, talking badly about them, rushing into someone new, or demanding closure too fast, sends the same signal: pressure, and pressure is the very thing an avoidant runs from. But when you choose restraint over reaction, you shift everything. You may not control whether they return, but you do control how you carry yourself. By refusing to beg, by resisting the urge to flood their phone or social media, by guarding their dignity even when you feel hurt, you show a strength that words cannot express. Silence, self-control, and self-respect are not signs of weakness. They are signs of someone who refuses to be defined by loss. The truth is, avoiding these mistakes is not just about keeping the avoidant's respect, it's about protecting your own. Even if they never come back, you will still have yourself stronger, calmer, and more whole than before. That is the only kind of healing that really lasts. So remember, every action you take after they leave either shuts the door permanently or leaves space for respect to regrow. The choice will always be yours. Protect your worth, guard your dignity, and allow time to work in your favor. If this spoke to you, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next part that will help you understand avoidance more deeply, and more importantly, help you rebuild yourself with clarity and strength.